This is a video about a single source or sole source contract that was recently prepared by the Portland District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the Butler Hanson National Wildlife Refuge Ecosystem Restoration Contract.
A single source is a source specifically selected amongst others to provide a device. This was very blatantly done on the Julia Butler contract. Portland District conspired with Golden Harvest of Burlington, Washington and produced a potentially lucrative single source contract for their benefit. This is strange, since Plastifab, the fabricator who originally produced my side-hinge hydraulically controlled tie gate back in 1995, is located a mere 13 miles south of Portland. Why did the Portland office do this? Okay, let's say you were a project manager for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. What would motivate you to want to produce a sole source contract?
Well, if you write a sole source contract, you don't have to do a detailed design.
Doing a detailed design is a lot of trouble, and it takes a level of skill that you may not have. For example, if you do a detailed design, you will need to determine the proper materials to use. Should you use aluminum? If so, what alloy? Oh, or maybe you should call for a corrosion-resistant steel of some kind. You may also need to be able to perform some relatively complicated engineering analysis, like, for example, a water hammer analysis, so you can size the culvert beds. And then you may need to do some 3D CAD design, like this detail that I did for the Aberdeen and Cosmopolis flood control project. Or this one.
Apparently the course designers who worked on this project were not capable of drawing the self-regulating tide gates. Instead, the drawings show rectangles that merely represent the tide gates. In fact, there is nothing in the drawings that conveys any pertinent information about the tide gates. Another reason why you might want to write a sole source contract is that making a sole source contract is easy. All you need to do is spell the supplier's name right in the specs and provide a basic description of what you want. In this contract they did just that. The specs say, quote, "Tide gates shall be Golden Harvest or approved equal," unquote. Now, over the years, Golden Harvest has produced a number of self-regulating tide gate designs. Most of the designs didn't work well or didn't work at all. Per the very concise spec for this contract, the tide gates for this project needed to be side-hinged hydraulic self-regulating. I know that design well since I was the person who originally came up with it back in 1993.
Note that by law, in a government contract, you have to say, "or approved equal," just to make it fair.
Fortunately, since there is virtually no information provided in the contract, there is no basis for anyone to establish what constitutes an equal. Since the government spec is completely useless, the manufacturer's spec will govern. Of course, I know what an equal looks like since I am the person who designed every detail for the tide gate design that Golden Harvest plagiarized. I've looked their design over and they have made a few minor changes. I can prove that nearly all of the changes are not improvements. If I were to publish a detailed list of the problems with their design, I'd be doing free design work for them.
That's not going to happen.
In contrast to the government's spec, Golden Harvest spec is very clear. It reads, quote, "The self-regulating tide gates shall be manufactured by Golden Harvest and no other will be acceptable," unquote.
Case closed.
The third reason to do a sole source contract is that the supplier you pick will love you. A sole source contract is a great way to make somebody love you. The supplier will make a handsome profit by selling the government their product, or in this case their knockoff, at a greatly inflated price since there is no competition. Not only that, the supplier doesn't have to go to the trouble of looking at the plans and specs to produce a device that meets the requirements. They can just ship you whatever they feel will work. The fourth reason is that if there's a problem, no one can blame you. When something goes haywire, it's the supplier's fault. You did nothing other than put Golden Harvest's name and phone number in your spec. How could anyone blame you if something goes wrong? For example, let's say that someone fiddles with something in the control cabinet. The tide gate supplier should have supplied padlocks for the control cabinets, but they didn't. Is that the designer's fault? Golden Harvest also should have included an adjustable pressure relief valve in the hydraulics. This is a backup circuit that will cause the SRT to close before high-velocity pipe-full flow develops. This is useful if the primary circuit, which is opened by the float, is disabled. The schematic for this looks something like this.
If Golden Harvest left this out of their copy of my SRT design, whose fault is that?
When something goes wrong, the Corps won't be completely innocent. They did do some level of design, and to be fair, the structural sheets are fairly respectable. However, the Corps' designers failed to appreciate why they might want to vent the culverts. This is very important since it could result in an explosive phenomenon known as water hammer. Water hammer will very likely result in a catastrophic failure of the tide gate. By writing a single source contract, the Corps did a couple of things. First, they revealed that they do not know what they are doing, and they failed to do their job as designers. Second, they effectively told Golden Harvest, 1, you can provide whatever you like, 2, you can charge us as much as you like, 3, you can choose to make the tide gates out of aluminum or corrosion-resistant steel. We really don't care. We trust you. 3. They effectively gave control of my brainchild, my tide gate design, to an incompetent and unethical company.
Thank you, Portland District. There's an old saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. That's what we set out to do. I was in an interesting position. I had what was the equivalent of inside information. I was probably one of the few people on the face of the planet that knew what an equal was. I had looked very closely at Golden Harvest 2 attempts to copy my design at Edison Slough and McElroy Slough. The one at Edison Slough didn't work at all. McElroy Slough seemed to work fine. And I could see clearly what changes they'd made, and I could make an equal. I also had an advantage that I had a team assembled that had experience doing tide gate projects, Quick Brothers McDonald and Plastifab. They did the work with me at Aberdeen Cosmopolis 15 years ago. So we knew we could do a very competitive bid, and we did. Per the solicitation, the project had a magnitude of construction of $5 to $10 million. The first bid opening was in October of 2008, and we were the low bidder at a bid of $4.2 million. Looks great. We're lower than the projected magnitude of construction of $5 to $10 million. The second bid opening was on March 10th, 2009. On the morning of the bid opening, I received a call from Plastifab telling me they were receiving phone calls from interested bidders and wanted to know if I had a problem with them giving prices. For me to tell them don't give prices out would be collusion to limit competition for a contract. And I felt that whoever won the contract, I would work with them through my fabricator and do this project. Fair is fair.
It's just a little bit of a problem. The government estimate of $2.5 million is half of the low end of scale on their estimated magnitude of construction for $5 to $10 million. It's also a very suspicious round number. If you look at the government estimate for the second bid opening, it has 7 significant digits rounded off to the nearest dollar. It appears they just pulled a number out of the air for the first bid opening, and they actually did a government estimate for the second bid opening. In the rebid, Risk Creek, Winter Slough, and Hanson Slough are shown as optional items. They are not included in the base bid. This should reduce the bid prices, and it clearly did, significantly. However, the government estimate also should have been reduced. It actually was 38% higher in the second bid opening. Something was really, really out of whack here. If the Corps had done a legitimate government estimate for the first bid opening, we would have came just under 30% over the government estimate, and they could have awarded the contract. Nice.
Taffy was awarded the contract in March of 2009. Soon after, I began an email dialogue with Ms. Katia Chambers of the Portland District and worked on establishing what would be required for our device to be considered an equal. Mentioned going up to look at some of the existing tide gates that Golden Harvest had installed, looking at some of my tide gates, and working out any details that were questionable.
While I was working with Katia, establishing what would be or not be an equal, and also discussing some VE options, Tapney and Plastifab were busily coordinating and getting set up to do the project. There was some email dialogue, and there were some strange, out-of-context quotes from Katia mentioning that something to the effect that the prime contractor could still choose a different fabricator. You can see these emails from the March 27th and April 3rd. I was under the mistaken assumption that the Corps would be the arbiter of what is an approved equal or not. Reality, Katia didn't even want to give it any thought, which may have made sense. She barely understood how the thing worked. How could she know it could be an equal? These quotes from Katia were totally out of context within the realm of what we were discussing, but in retrospect, it's obvious that they were still hoping somehow that Tapney would choose to use Golden Harvest rather than Plastifab to produce the tide gates. On Saturday, May 2nd, I received an email from Randy Stewart, my contact at Plastifab, informing them that he had been told by Tapney that Golden Harvest had sent Tapney a letter, or their lawyer had sent a letter, and threatened to sue them if they didn't use them, and they couldn't discuss the contents of the letter. Portland District got their wish.